Hello everyone, this is AndresRestart, and this time we are talking about what may be the most detailed leak for Nintendo Switch 2 yet. This post is coming from a user on Reddit, however, the moderators on Reddit are backing this. Apparently, some very compelling evidence has been provided that is leading them to support this leak or rumor with so much conviction. And the kind of information we're seeing here is giving us a little bit more insight into launch plans, more so on how the console looks, the dock, the Joy-Cons, and even a little bit more on the features this console may have. And so there's a lot to dissect here. There are some elements that still have me a bit skeptical. I think you should still take this with a grain of salt, but it is certainly interesting, and a lot of people seem to believe that at least many elements of this are definitely true. And so that's what we're getting into today. But before going forward, let me take this moment to ask that if you do enjoy my content, to please subscribe and hit that notification bell, and if you're unsure, watch through this video and then consider subscribing and hitting that bell. So over these last few weeks, more and more different accessory manufacturers have been leaking more elements of the Switch 2. A lot of it's been very samey, very similar, because it's essentially just an accessory covering the Switch 2, or a 3D render, or something of that nature of the Switch 2. And the main focus of today's discussion is not that. However, I do want to point out another one that has been circulating very recently. So I saw this on Twitter. Negrafelipe from Universal Nintendo posted it. Apparently this is coming from Fannyboards or Kaisen. And when you look at the images here, looks kind of like a cool accessory around a big Nintendo Switch that's clearly a little different because it's the Switch 2. And I don't plan on spending too much time on this, but a lot of people are talking about this because we're getting some up-close looks at the Joy-Cons, the buttons, analog sticks that can be either convex or concaved, it looks like. The U-shaped kickstand, there's even a few more images over here. We can see some size dimensions, up close, back sides of the Joy-Cons with the accessory around it, of course. That looks pretty cool. Is there anything special about these? Well, no, in my opinion, I don't really think so. I actually think these might be a little misleading. Notice how the buttons here say YABX. That's not the typical orientation for Nintendo. The X and Y are swapped here. I'm pretty sure they have like a 3D print or render of some kind, and they're just filling in some details, including the X, Y, A, and B. You'll notice there's actually like a discoloring here, so that's more evidence to it just being kind of photoshopped on there. And then the buttons over here are completely plain. They're not going to be plain. There's going to be something on them that shows like an arrow or something to that effect. And so this isn't exactly how the console is going to look. The shape, sure, but these little details here, no. I think this is just another accessory manufacturer putting a little bit of estimation work onto what they've been told about the dimensions of the console. So it's not a big deal. But what may be a big deal is this post from Reddit. So here we see, next handheld, I've come from the future. Leak. I got my muggy hands on a final release Switch 2 and its dock. Ask me anything, I'll post proof on Christmas. And so, at first, this was likely going to get deleted, this entire post. However, Max Not Cool the Mod chimed in here. WTF. They actually had evidence. That's very new. This person is unironically telling the truth or is a really good hoaxer, but that wouldn't make sense if they were trying to hide it, so I don't know. And here you see that they crossed all this out. If you don't either post the proof now or have a damn good excuse for why you cannot post it until Christmas, I will ban your account. So they were going to ban this account. They don't put up with this kind of behavior if there's not some actual evidence behind the post, and then through private DMs, they got the evidence, and so they kept this post on there. Now, what have we learned from this thread? Well, looking here are some bullets. User claims to have the console but not been allowed to turn it on. They've just gotten a good look at the hardware. The console is called Switch 2, and the logo is a Switch logo with a giant 2 on the side. And apparently, Necrophilippe actually communicated with this person, and from what was described, it would look something like this. Which, it's basically the same thing. There's just now a 2 fitted in there from the prior logo. Great. Moving on, continuing with the bullets here. Their units were dark gray, but apparently there is a full white SKU, both Joy-Cons and the tablet, and another special edition SKU is themed around a game with a 9. It seems very obvious hint at Mario Kart 9. Now that's some interpretation there, we'll get to that part, but I first want to focus on both the Joy-Cons and the tablet having a uniform color here. I've seen these mock-ups circulating, and it looks like people have put this together to sort of guess how the console looks based off the leak, and if this is how the console looks, I think it looks pretty good. They also mentioned the dock stuff, which we'll touch on in a moment here, but I love the idea that the tablet is the same color as the Joy-Cons. Having a white tablet, I think I would definitely go for this version if it's available at launch, which sounds really cool. But we'll get to the dock stuff again later, as I said. Coming back to these bullets here, the console doesn't really feel heavier than the current Switch, so it feels lighter to hold, or even though it's bigger, it feels about the same. That is pretty important, I would say. The buttons and sticks are marginally larger than the current Switch. Marginally larger is marginally better, in my opinion, so I love to hear that, although we already kind of figured that based off all the prior leaks. Magnetically attaching the Joy-Cons to the console makes a mechanical click sound. I do want that click. I want it to feel satisfying, I want it to feel responsive, so having something there that makes it feel like it clicks in and it feels right, well, it would help it to feel right. The 2 back buttons are indeed the Joy-Con release buttons. That should really come as no surprise. Heard the reveal is next month for a Nintendo meeting. I think they may be referring to the investor meeting on February 4th, 2025. Sure, that makes sense. The investors meeting on the 4th, we all kind of think that the reveal is going to happen soon. I mean, Nintendo's told us it's going to happen by the end of the fiscal year, so we're running out of time here where it could possibly happen. We're now in the thick of the holidays. It's not going to happen this calendar year at this point, almost certainly. So we're looking at January at the very earliest here, and likely a few weeks into January because, well, there's still the holidays. Some of the holidays trickle into January. The dock has the same ports of the Switch OLED dock, and it is a bit larger, but curved, and so much of the screen pops out. Going back to the dock stuff here, we can see, you know, these renders here that have been put together to kind of guess how this would kind of look. Now, I don't know if it's going to be popping out this much. That hasn't been clarified, but it does look like a little bit of it pops out. Now, it already popped out a bit for Switch 1. Could have popped out a bit more and be a bit more pronounced. Perhaps, maybe they do want to take advantage of this feature of being able to show some details just like this. And I will say, for those complaining about the Switch 2 looking too much like the Switch 1, if they're going for a look like this with the dock, where it's a lot more rounded, at least when it's in the dock, it would look a fair bit different, wouldn't it? And if the tablet has a color that's uniform to the Joy-Cons, where it's white and not just all gray across the board, I think that's going to help a lot. With those white Joy-Cons, it's going to look like a really sleek device. It's going to be very cool looking. So I think this would be pretty great. Now, something that has been noted is that there is no indication of the buttons having colors. I think there is a post we'll get to later where they just literally say there's no color to the buttons, which is disappointing if this is all true, but I mean, still, I think it looks pretty cool. The game card slots look the same as the current Switch. Okay, they're gonna look the same. The top side of the Joy-Con, when attached, has a surprise feature. Oh, and the magnets themselves are buttons. So when they say the top side of the Joy-Con when detached, do they mean the side that is hidden when detached? I guess they do, because they also say, oh, and the magnets themselves are buttons. So I'm not really sure what they mean by top side, but they say top side when detached has a surprise feature. So I'm very curious on this. Does this tie to the magnets themselves? That's hard to say. We've already theorized before, we've heard other people speculate that the actual SL and SR buttons while we have seen they are bigger from the different leaks we've seen before, these buttons themselves are actually the magnets that help the Joy-Cons attach to the tablet. Now, they also say it's an LCD screen. This we've already known. I know people are disappointed to not get an OLED screen, but please keep in mind, LCD technology has improved over the years. This is likely not going to be the same type of LCD we saw with Switch 1, and we've also heard that the screen is going to be 8 inches, 1080p, which is far better than the 6.2 720p or even the 7-inch 720p OLED screen. The only advantage of OLED is that it's OLED, but if this is a newer LCD, that gap in color values may be mitigated significantly here. ZL and ZR buttons are larger than the current Switch. I've kind of felt like that looking at the different leaks, so bigger shoulder buttons I think would be nice. I could get into this entire post here. I'll have links in the description below on the moderator talking about the entire process of communicating with them and the whole Christmas thing and sharing information and why they trust them. I'm not going to read this whole stuff. If you want to, it's in the description below. Essentially, what was shared to the moderator in private DMs was so compelling, they believed it was incredibly hard to fake, and they don't see why they would even bother to do that, and so they find it believable, but they also note how the user, the leaker here, really did not want to have anyone else see this bit of evidence, so they were very hesitant to even share the information, which has led to the moderator believing them more so. And apparently the reason why they can't reveal more details until Christmas is because every day more and more people are being shown the Switch 2, and so if they were to show the evidence that they are sharing privately now, it would be more obvious who's actually leaking it here. But a couple weeks from now, when more people have seen the console and would have gotten the same evidence, not so much. But there are more details that have come out from here. So, HollowCrow813 on Reddit asked, will the dock have a sort of eGPU? And Next Handheld said, nope. So, in other words, the dock will have any sort of extra hardware in there that will help with the graphical performance. Now, for those that are confused, the way the dock works on Switch 1, it is more powerful when docked, but that's because the clock speeds go higher since it's connected to an external power source, and they don't have to worry about power consumption. The Switch 2 will likely work in the same way. Now, it's been theorized that maybe there might be a fan inside that dock, and that hasn't been deconfirmed yet, however, not confirmed either. And that, plus a stronger power supply, will facilitate higher clock speeds when docked for overall better performance in that mode. So this part really doesn't come as much of a surprise. Continuing on here, apparently, no nub. The game cartridge slot is the same size, but I didn't see games. I've been told there is something in the teeth section that prevents it from going in the original Switch. So the cartridges apparently look about the same, but there's just something about the connection points that will not allow it to fit into Switch 1. That's curious. I wonder if the cartridges will have some sort of sticker on there or coloring that will make it more obvious that it's a Switch 2 cartridge than a Switch 1 if they are about the same size. The Switch 2 comes in one uniform color. Tablet and Joy-Con are the same colors. We've discussed this part already. The text on the buttons are not colored. They were asked, is the text buttons colored? They say no, which is disappointing, but you know, you can't win them all. Moving on. Engineer confirmed it's a Hall effect joystick, which is great. If it's Hall effect, that means Joy-Con drift is gone. That does still have us wondering about the patents regarding the magnetic fluid, and if this will allow for some sort of resistive feedback. That remains to be seen. It has not been deconfirmed, and this person has teased that there are some features to the Joy-Cons we don't know about yet. And it looks like eventually they may be able to turn on this console and learn more, so I guess we'll obviously be staying tuned here. But what they have been looking at is an actual final retail unit, not some more CAD files from accessory makers. Now, there are some things from this post and all the information that's come out from it that are leading people to get really excited about some interesting premises here. One is the idea of Mario Kart 9 being the launch title, since there's this talk of this special edition Switch 2 having something to do with a game with 9, and people are assuming that this is Mario Kart 9. And I don't want to dive into the debate between it being Mario Kart 9 or 10, But there is someone out there that is suggesting that Mario Kart, whatever it is not going to be the launch title for Switch 2. So Samus Hunter here said, "There is this Reddit thread that is circulating. Many aspects related to the hardware match with what has already been circulating for months. The information, however, about the game with the 9 is not Mario Kart. It is not targeting as a launch title." And then here they continue, "There is, however, the Final Fantasy IX remake that will be coming out, although I have no information on a possible bundle or limited edition at the moment." So they're suggesting that from what they understand, Mario Kart will not be the launch title, but they're also not saying anything in this post is incorrect either. And it should be made clear that this user who's leaking all these details has not said that Mario Kart 9 is the Switch 2 launch title, or that special edition is Mario Kart 9. Now, do I think a Mario Kart 9 or 10 or whatever it's called would be a fantastic launch title for Switch 2? I absolutely do. I think it would be an ideal game, actually. But there's no real leaks here that are suggesting that from what we're seeing. Now, something else I saw here from this post here I'm on the actual page itself, and it looks different, I know, but here, next handheld, the user says, for the release date, because he was asked by PokeGuy, do you know the release date? And they say mid-March is what I've been told, but this is not from first-party source. Given that this was said yesterday, December 14th, I just have a hard time believing that someone could think that the Switch 2 is going to launch in mid-March. It hasn't been revealed yet at this point. Now, there have been some rumors suggesting that Nintendo could have a very quick turnaround, and we could be talking about a reveal in January for a release in mid-March, a 2-month turnaround there. I really, really doubt this. We've already talked about how there are other sources out there suggesting a May to July release window, such as Nate the Hate, Samus Hunter, and Nintendo from their third-party sources. So, personally, I think this person, if they are speaking legitimately, if they're not lying about all this stuff for clout or whatever sort of attention they're looking to get, I think it's because it would be outdated information. And they do say this is not from a first-party source. So they may not have even been told about launch timing information when they got their hands on this console. And they're simply saying this because they've heard about mid-March from other sources that are not as reliable and could just be outdated. So I don't want to outright say that this leak is fake, but I also don't 100% believe it either. I think there's definitely elements to it that are real, and those elements may simply be the elements we've already heard about from other leaks that have been leaked continuously by all these different Chinese accessory leaks, the shipping manifest, the Nvidia leaks. Like, there's so many different things that have happened over the last couple of years that have given us some real insight into what the Switch 2 will be. This stuff might be true. I do hope that the tablet is the same color as the Joy-Cons. I think that would really help it to look a lot better. I've already believed that the dock would be rounded based off of another prior leak from someone who's seemingly reliable in Ninspider from Family Boards, and also the U-shaped kickstand. So I think things are going to look different and be interesting. But I'm taking this information here with a grain of salt, but we'll see what happens. Regardless, I think a reveal is happening probably within the next 6 weeks or so, if not sooner. But what do you all think? Let me know in the comments below. This is AndresRestart. Thank you so much for listening and watching, and I'll see you all really soon. Take care. Bye.